Welcome to today's conversation on the Holistic Cat Specialist YouTube channel, where we dive deep into the relationships we share with our cats and the hands on approach to their wellness, which goes above and beyond just providing food and shelter, of course. Today, we are exploring a fascinating topic. What does it really mean to be a cat owner versus a cat parent or guardian? Does the language that we use shape our relationships with our cats? And how we can choose the term that resonates most with our personal bond. So, before we dive into today's topic, I want to take a moment to introduce my incredible guest today, someone that has done a lot of work and someone whose work has touched the lives of so many cat guardians and animal lovers worldwide. Shannon Cutts is a professional animal sensitive and intuitive, a Reiki master, and an animal communicator teacher with animal love languages. She has a remarkable gift for helping people understand and deepen their bond with their animal companions on a truly profound level. Shannon works with a global client base, supporting pet guardians through some of the most delicate and emotionally charged experiences, whether it is helping a cat with anxiety, navigating the transition of a beloved pet, exploring the possibility of pet reincarnation, or understanding the complex dynamics of a multi-species household. Her insights don't just offer comfort, they create tangible shifts in the way people connect with their animals, leading to greater harmony and trust. Beyond her one on one work, Shannon is also the host of Let's Talk to Animals podcast, where she explores the deeper, often unseen layers of interspecies communication. Through her teaching and mentorship, she empowers pet guardians to tap into their own intuitive abilities, helping them recognize and honor the soul contracts that they share with their animals. Shannon, I am so excited to have you here today. Welcome and thank you for sharing your wisdom with us.
Well, it's an absolute joy, and I will endeavor to attempt to live up to that introduction. Paola, you are so generous and so kind, and thank you for seeing so deeply into the work that I offer the world. I truly appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Well, Shannon, I'd like to start from the basics as an animal
Sure.
intuitive. What initially drew you to explore the different concepts of cat owner versus cat parent or cat guardian, and how has that shaped your own work with animals and their humans? I have listened to one of your episodes that touches on this subject, and I was fascinated hearing your perspective on this. So I'd love for you to walk us through this.
Well, love is the universal love language, love itself, the experience, the emotion, the sensory awareness of love. And it naturally draws us to get curious about the different kinds of bonds we can share. I know you have 4 feline family members at the moment. I have a multi-species family of 5 different species, including my own. And when we love somebody, when we feel that draw to spend time with them, regardless of species, we're always curious to find out what makes them tick and what it is in us that resonates so deeply with them. And that's what I'm calling the soul contract, which we'll get into a little bit later on here on the show. But there are nuances to living in an interspecies family or an interspecies partnership, depending on what kind of soul agreement that we may share with our animals. And because we Homo sapiens have certain rights that most under really all other animal species currently do not share in, it prods us into a deeper exploration of where are those boundaries? What are my responsibilities? What does the law have to say versus what does my heart say? And we can get into those nuances, and it can feel a little confusing. It can feel off-putting sometimes. It can feel scary when we realize that in the eyes of the law, we may be wearing one hat for our animal loves. In the eyes of our daily family life, we're wearing a different hat. In a role that we may have, for instance, I'm working in cat rescue right now, which is a new and wonderful adventure for me. And so these animals that I'm working with, they're not joining my family, but I do have a role to play in their life. And so that may be another hat that we wear. And we may work professionally with animals. Not so long ago, rewind 100 years or so, and we had much more equal partnerships that were much more mutually interdependent when we relied on our animals for everything from food and shelter and safety and getting our work done, transportation, even warmth in the wintertime. So there are nuances to our bond, and the wise and responsible pet, fill in the blanks, because we'll talk about that, right? The term that
Yes.
you resonate with. I resonate with the term pet parent. So that's how I refer
Likewise.
to myself. But there are nuances again. So whatever term we choose, we may have to switch between terms depending on what hat we're wearing and what role we're playing for the well-being care, as well as the love that we feel for our cats, for our birds. Those of you who are watching right now, you see I've got a little kitten with wings here on my finger who is very interactive and needing a lot of cuddling and touch and recognition. And so we're constantly juggling these hats. And it can be very reassuring, I feel, which is why I love this topic so much, to understand which hat am I wearing? What role am I playing? Mm-hmm. What are the responsibilities under that role? Am I fulfilling them well? That way I can feel really confident, really good about how I'm showing up for the animal that I love so deeply.
Excellent. Yes. And this is very interesting. And it makes me wonder, you have worked obviously with cat guardians all over the world. And I'm wondering how you have seen the terminology that people use, whether it is owner or guardian or parent, reflect their deeper connection and communication style with their cats.
Well, it's an interesting question because I have clients in 20 countries and counting at this point, and there are cultural differences and different understandings of what these words mean. I tend to be a little bit of a word nerd. I have a background in freelance writing and a lifelong love of reading and love of words. And so I never go into a session, into a conversation, a 3-way conversation, sometimes a 4 or 5-way conversation. If we're talking with a whole family, often a multi-cat family, I never go in assuming that someone else uses the terminology that I use. So I'll often ask, that's the simplest way, right? To make sure everyone's comfortable. And animal communication itself can be a new enough experience for the cat owner, parent, and or guardian, or whatever term they use. We don't want to further complicate it. So it's, for me, a lot of times, if I'm feeling any degree of hesitation around the terminology I use, some cat carers, that's another term I use, they are very comfortable with mom or dad. Mm-hmm. Some really are not. And with gender fluidity increasingly being recognized and honored, we don't want to make a misstep there either, because the energy with which that human has bonded with their animal is the energy that I want to tap into and, to the best of my ability, flow with during my conversation with that family. So yes, it's a real interesting exercise for me to open my mind and my heart to all the different nuances and not come in with an assumption, oh, well, because you call yourself a cat owner. Because I have had clients tell me, I think of myself as a pet owner. I'm like, I'm fine with that. Mm-hmm. Because they have their reasons, just like our animals always have their reasons for what they're doing, why they're doing it, and why they're doing it at that particular moment in the way in which they're doing it. We too have our reasons. Now, for some animal carers, it's simply a matter of, with everything that's going on in the world and in our lives, they just simply haven't sat down to think about it, to kind of sift through it. And that's why, again, why I love this topic today, because we're going to give everyone an introduction to kind of the energetics behind it. And maybe you'll have a chance to feel what feels right for you.
Yes, that's
really the most important thing.
Yeah, that's really open-minded, to give people the possibility to come to you with whatever definition they apply to themselves. I tend to resonate with cat parents in particular, because or cat carers or cat guardians, because I feel that this connotation implies a caring role towards the cats that people have under their care. So because I teach hands-on cat care, and to do that, you need to be caring a little bit beyond just providing some food and a roof on their head. And so yes, that for me is what I recognize myself as, and also what I connect with and resonate with. But something that you mentioned a little bit before, maybe not with these words, but as a concept, is the soul contracts. So between humans and cats. So in terms of animals choose to be with us in the conditions that are present at the moment, and there is a lot of choice that goes into how we meet them and how they depart even this world. And it is fascinating, and I think it is something that is worth discussing. So one of the most intriguing perspective that you bring to this conversation is the idea of the soul contract that we just mentioned between, in particular, humans and cats. So I would like you to explain a little bit more what this means and how you can help people recognize and honor these special connections.
Absolutely. I learn about soul contracts, soul agreements, and those words are pretty interchangeable. And again, it's nuance, right? I've had students tell me I really don't like the idea of soul contract. That sounds, legally binding. Um, Everything can be legally binding, and then it's also open to negotiation. So it's really about what term you resonate. I had never really considered it that way until she said that. And now I've realized energetically I prefer soul agreement. But brass tacks basics, what I'm referring to is out of all of the humans alive on this planet right now, and we are very numerous in number, and all of the animals alive on this planet right now who potentially have soul agreements to keep company with humans, what are the chances, if we were just doing a random number generator, what are the chances that we would find one another and form these deep heart to heart, soul to soul connections, to the point where so many of my clients are even finding their animals reincarnated in a new body, and they recognize the energetic signature of that soul goes so much deeper than the exterior appearance. The species, the breed, the gender, these sorts of things fade away in the presence of an energetic signature, a soul thumbprint, if you will, that we recognize, and we recognize one another. And so that's the soul agreement. In the spirit of the soul or the energetic dimension, when we don't have these, what I call space boots, these kind of clunky 3D bodies, they're pretty groovy, they're pretty neat. They give us a lot of functionality in this plane of existence, but they're not necessary everywhere. And Einstein tells us through the law of conservation of energy that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can and is, however, transmuted and transformed. And so we have this at some level, and I feel like it happens in a state where we're not in these 3D bodies. I feel like it happens prior to when we enter these 3D bodies to have whatever set of adventures we've signed up for here. We connect with our soul family, our interspecies soul family. And we set up a series of adventures with key learning moments along the way and opportunities to open our heart and deepen our bond with one another and be braver and stronger and kinder and all of the good things that when we think about humanity's potential, we think, well, we're the species that has the most to learn about all of this. And so there are animals that sign up specifically to keep close company with us. And the animal is the animal that's right for the job, so to speak. When I ask the animals what it's like for them when they're choosing their human, they show me something that's not unlike what I saw way back in the day when I was in college. Of course, I'm in my 5th decade now. We would have one of those big old cork boards on the side and all the little job postings tacked up there. And I see the animals in the big crowd, and they're craning over each other's heads, and all the species are in there together, and everybody's looking for their person. And when they find their perfect match, they grab that ad, that little air quotes ad off the board, and they hold it up and say, I found mine, and they go up and they sign up for that. And often these bonds are so successful that we sign up over and over and over again. And that's where the pets tell me that the word pet stands for partner, empathic, friend, and teacher. They're teaching us how to be brave, how to open our hearts. We just know. And so often our stories, if you're listening to this, you're watching this today, and you're thinking back to how you met, chances are good there's a miracle story in there somewhere. Like, I just can't believe I got this lucky. I can't believe that you chose me. We all have our miracle stories. That's the soul agreement in action.
I definitely have one. I
know you do. I know you do. And it is a powerful one. Yeah.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes. One of my cats appeared. I just knew, I can't quite explain it rationally, but I knew that my mom recently passed away, and I felt that she was sending me him. And when I met him, I just knew he was my cat, and we just belonged to each other. So there was no escaping that. And it's the role he has had in my life, and
Yeah.
everything that he has done, and the way I still feel his presence around me is just something else. And it's a
Yeah.
very, yes, I would say that if there is an explanation for soul contract or a demonstration for that, that would be what it feels like. So I can't quite
What it feels like.
rationally, justify it, but I can feel it. So
Yeah.
yes.
Well, at some point, that's where I like to go back to this really old school movie named Contact, and it starred Jodie Foster and Matthew McConaughey. And what this, I swear, this and Star Wars like started me on my soul path. And in the movie, Jodie Foster plays a scientist, hard knocks, brass tacks, data only scientist, and Matthew McConaughey is a man of faith. And the two of them are instantly attracted to one another and also instantly repelled. And she's constantly asking him, how can you believe in something where there is no data? For me, I need proof. And as it turns out, he knew enough of her story to know that her father had died when she was young and that she was still very, very much missing him. And he said to her, "Did you love your father?" And she said, "Yes, very much." And he said, "Prove it." So there are beliefs, theories, hypotheses. That's the stuff of science that drives human curiosity to create and to invent and to discover.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's inner knowings, lived experiences,
Mm-hmm.
where beliefs are formed and shaped, yes, but they also become unnecessary at that point in time because
Mm-hmm.
I've had this experience. And on that level, isn't that why we're here? To have heart opening, life transforming experiences where I no longer need data. That just doesn't interest me because I'm living something and it's wonderful. I'm not interested in disproving the wonder of my experience. I'm actually literally like, I don't care. I'm happy to just live in this incredible place of soul to soul connection.
Yeah, and this has it resonates with energy and the energy work that you do. And of course, some people find this very woo-woo until
That
they
they do.
become sensitive enough or they meet the right connection that makes them understand what this is all about. So as a Reiki master and energy worker, how do you see energy work enhancing the guardian cat relationship beyond just the basic care responsibilities, for example?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And, for me, and this isn't typically the way that it happens, although I'm sure that there are other stories out there, but for me, learning animal communication and receiving my Reiki attunements happened at the same time. And so it was always very natural for me. And I feel like being Reiki attuned, and if you're not familiar, Reiki is transmitted from master to student via a process called attunement, where the energy is literally activated and opened. So someone that's already had this happen can then transmit it to someone else. So there is a course of study and learning and practice involved, but the actual transmission process is done via attunement. And so this happened, and my energy was activated and enhanced at a time when I was also learning the basics and the fundamentals, what I call the left brain mind tactical stuff of the structure of animal communication. So it was very natural for me to put the two together. And all of this was unfolding at a time when my father was entering hospice and going through his final transition. And so he was my primary recipient. And it was very easy for me to witness when I was offering Reiki to my dad, who was in a coma for 17 days on heavy pain meds, how everyone else in the family would instantly calm. And when the care workers would walk in often in the afternoon, they'd find us all on the floor, just scattered around dad's bed, sleeping, including the animals. Animals are so sensitive to energy because, unlike we human animals, they don't live from their left brain. They have a left brain function. We all do because we need that structure and we need that sense of individuality, at least when we're in these spacesuits. But animals default to their right brain, which is very sensory and connective. It's very intuitive. It's imaginative. It's dialed into rest, digest, and restore, and the subconscious mind. The left brain mind is very analytical, rational, data driven. It's very individualistic. It's not intuitive at all. It's not energetically sensitive, and it's dialed in with the sympathetic nervous system. And so what often happens when we bring two different species together, in this case, a cat and a human, and cats are like, I don't know, they've got an intuition that's on a whole other level. So we're even just like intuition on steroids. And then you've got this left brain driven human because that's how we've been domesticated, educated, and trained. You bring them together, and what often happens is we've got a thinking, feeling feedback loop that forms. So here's just a very simple example. Let's say the feline family member is doing something that drives the human family member out of their mind, either with worry or with annoyance or with anger or with fear or whatever it is. And the human dimly senses that there is a reason. There's something going on, but they try to logic through it with their left brain mind. And they don't get anywhere because their left brain mind isn't hooked into intuition and inner knowings, just like what we talked about when we recognize our love in their new body. So there's just this. So then the human's anxiety starts to ramp up, or their fear, or their anger, or their frustration, or whatever. Well, our animals are so connected and so sensory and so emotional, energy and motion. That's the love that they evoke in us, but it can also evoke other strong emotions. And so they're picking up what we're broadcasting, which is this. And so before we know it, we've got this feedback loop where we're trading all of this rather negative, frustrated. It's not like it's negative, like we have bad intentions. It's just really not helpful. It's toxic to us. It's producing cortisol in everybody's bodies, and we don't know how to get out of it. And that's where the energy can come in through the power of entrainment, which is where, I know this sounds really sciencey, but for we human animals, we like the sciencey stuff, right? We like to help our left brain understand what's going on. Mm-hmm. Entrainment states that all other energy will entrain to the dominant frequency, not the highest vibration frequency, but the strongest frequency. So when I'm working with an energy source like Reiki, that is a very strong, universal, powerful, and benevolent, kind, healing, and calming energy source. So when I'm offering this Reiki energy, it's able to come into the mix and naturally entrain this anxious, nervous, misunderstanding, frustration, irritation, fearfulness to it. That's as sciencey as I can get as far as why it works and how it works. Again, though, there's a difference between forming our belief, well, I don't know if it's going to work, so I'm not going to try it, versus, well, I don't know if it's going to work, but what I've tried so far hasn't helped. I think I'd like to try it, to give it a try. And along with some other techniques I use, and they're sometimes necessary and they're sometimes not. EFT, or emotional freedom technique, is a technique that I use a lot, especially when helping pets release trauma and helping their guardians, carers, pet parents, or owners, depending on what we resonate with, helping them then release trauma. So sometimes it's helpful to pair a few different energy techniques together. Chakra balancing is also key. Non-mechanical scalar wave is another technique that I use, working with the energy of the body and entraining the body to a perfect cell within the system as a way of reminding all the other disordered cells, hey, this is what you're supposed to look like. This is what you're supposed to act like. This is how you're supposed to function. And be like, oh, I just forgot. I was so flooded with cortisol. I completely forgot what a cell is really supposed to feel like, what it feels like to be a healthy cell. So there's all kinds of different energy techniques that we can bring in. And I am very intuitively guided as far as which one to use. But bottom line is, we are energy. Our brains are electric and our hearts are magnetic. And this has been studied and documented. Our hearts are so magnetic, they're so strong that their energy can be detected at above 3 feet outside of our physical skin. So we are energy in motion. So wouldn't it make sense if we have energy coursing through us, and so do our animals, and we impact one another with the dominant energy vibrations we're transmitting? Wouldn't it just make sense that we'd want to learn about those? We want to learn how to work with them. And this is especially critical when our cats are in crisis at some level, healing after an injury or an illness, entering their end of life transition. These are times when our energy can spike in the wrong direction. And that is often what creates a feedback loop within the pet parent, because they want to provide a Zen calm space for their animal. They want their cats to find ease and peace, but they can't turn off their own worry. So then they get stuck in, and now I'm making it worse. And I think I'm making my cat worse because I'm so anxious and I can't seem to, I've had so many of my human clients say, I just can't seem to dial down my anxiety. And I know it's not helping my animal heal or pass peacefully or whatever may be unfolding. So wouldn't it make sense then that we might want to learn about how to work with our own energy and motion? That's what emotion is. And develop some life skills. And again, that's where the animal, the partner, empathic friend, and teacher, we might not ever seek these tools out for ourselves. I have so many of my human clients who have become open to some of the more woo-woo fringe alternative or quote unquote complementary options that I've offered because nothing else they've tried for their beloved animal has worked.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and the woo-woo area of discussion here sometimes has a really scientific proof beyond it. So yes, we are not approaching it with the scientific proof, but we are approaching it from the energetic perspective. But actually, when you look for it, there are some techniques like something that just blew my mind a few days ago that I learned recently, that actually there is a way to prove that grounding is so important because if you look at the blood under a microscope, our cells are sort of gelled together, and they have a certain appearance. And after you ground, you put your feet directly on the ground and you allow these electromagnetic fields to connect. The cells of the blood, they just separate and they become rounder and nicer. So in most cases, this is enough to make your cells feel better. And this is just from you putting your feet on the ground. And someone can think that actually this is a bit of a woo-woo technique that is up in the air, but actually there is a scientific proof beyond it that you can actually change physically something by allowing the electromagnetic fields to, because obviously we are on Earth and Earth is magnetic as well because it attracts towards the center. So obviously there's gravity, there are lots of physics laws in place. So obviously, yes, it's not just woo-woo, it's also practical. And being open to these energetic modalities can definitely enhance our relationships with our cats. And if somebody is watching now, and obviously this is a bit of an introduction to this topic, but for someone watching who wants to deepen their connection with their cat, what is one simple practice that they could start today to shift their energy towards a more empathetic and guardian style relationship?
One. You just restrict me to one, and that's a tough one. Before we leave the grounding, I just want you to know I always stand on a grounding mat. I'm standing on a grounding mat right now, and it is something that I am routinely recommending to my human clients to get for themselves and for their animals often. And I know, especially with cats, so I just want to touch on this for cats, especially with cats, there's a concern about letting them go outside. Well, animals naturally crave being outdoors because that is in them. That's in their wild DNA to ground on the earth. It helps them to heal. It's very, very natural. Everything that we know about plant medicine today, we learned about from watching animals use the resources and the fruits of our planet, of Mama Earth, to heal themselves long before there were any vets. And so something that is easy to do, especially if your cat is not feeling well, and you probably work with this as well, is just get a grounding mat and place it on their bed or in an area where they like to rest. And that gives them the benefits of the magnetic force, the force field of the earth, without having to worry about allowing them outside or with kittens, for instance, in a time in their life when it might not be safe for them to go outside. So I just wanted to add that on. I have a grounding mat in my bed. I am standing on a grounding mat right now. I love my grounding mats because it's not always possible to go outside, and it really does make a difference. So as far as there's two practices I actually want to share, and they go hand in hand. The first one is what I call the language of deep listening. And it's simply giving your attention, your full, undivided attention to your animal, not I've got one eye on my phone and one eye on the clock and one eye, if I've got a third eye, it's on my to-do list and who needs to be picked up or dropped off or whatever's going on. It is 100%. The first thing I do, and this is just an example, the first thing I do every morning when I wake my animals up is Peta will fly to the windowsill and I will walk, and she usually starts screeching because she's seen something, and I will walk over and I will ask her out loud, "What do you see, honey? Show mommy what you see." And I look around, even though my eyes aren't as keen as hers, and often I can't see the HAWK circling in the air a zillion miles above the earth, or the hose that looks like a lizard, or any of the other things. It gives me an opportunity to step out of my world and into hers. I do this with my tortoise. I do this with our dog. When I had my rescue kitten, Momo, I learned so much, and that's a whole other story. That is a whole other story. I could spend episode after episode talking about all the lessons that precious Momo gave to me. And I knew that my soul bird Pearl, who had passed about 6 months ago before I met him, I knew that Pearl had sent me Momo. But that is the first thing I do. And then throughout the day, I bought my tortoise a little baby mat that had a mirror on it. And it just, I don't know why, just intuitively, I saw it in the thrift store and I thought, I think Malty would like that. And it wasn't until I got it home, because it's got all those little sensory things. And tortoises are so intelligent. They're so curious. They're just like cats and dogs and birds. They're incredibly sharp. And one morning I had set it up for her and I noticed that she was parked in front of it, staring at the little mirror obsessively and not moving. And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, she has never seen her own reflection. Mm-hmm. So I just sat there with her and I got my face down there so she could see my face because she knows what I look like. Mm-hmm. So she could better understand what she was looking like. And I said, that's you, honey. That's you. So 100%, I'm not distracted. Mm-hmm. We spend zillions of dollars each year on holiday costumes and gifts and treats and toys, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. But what our animals want the most is us. That's why they came. That's why they're here, and that's why they're still here. Mm-hmm. Because an animal that's not happy will leave. They will find a way, and I work with those cases as well. And it's not always that animal got lost. They weren't happy. That was a part of the negotiation. So that's a whole other topic. But understand that meeting their core needs is so simple. And it truly is the same core need that we have. When we're in a partnership with someone, what do we want most? We want their attention. We want their time. We want their interest and curiosity. The other thing that's really, really cool to do, and you may need to actually, if your cat is open to it, use your hand and actually place it somewhere on their body, maybe near their chest area at first, so you can kind of get a sense of what's going on. But the other really, really cool thing to do, and this wraps back to entrainment again, is to synchronize your breathing. Mm-hmm. And in fact, this is a great way to make sure that all of you is present. Mm-hmm. You can't do it as easily with all species, but it's very doable with cats who are open to being physically, even just gently touched, even just at the edges of their fur, and you can feel their body moving a little bit. To synchronize your breathing, it puts you into that more of that alpha brainwave state where you're a little bit meditative, you're a little bit daydreamy, so you're accessing the imagination channel. You're accessing your intuition. Einstein efforted his best to live in this state because he said that's where all the best insights and ideas came from. So you can just gently place yourself in that alpha state and then begin to notice your animal's world through their senses. And it's such a beautiful practice. Even if you just do this first thing in the morning, do this when they're active, during one of their active periods, you can just stop what you're doing and just notice them, noticing their world, and just delighting in that. Just delighting in it, just having so much fun watching mm-hmm. them, noticing and interacting with their world, and just trying on a new perspective. Think of it as cat TV. Just think of it as cat TV. You're watching cat mm-hmm. TV. Your cat is mm-hmm. taking you on an adventure in your very own house or your very own yard. That sounds like fun, right? It probably mm-hmm. sounds like a lot more fun than checking your phone or your to-do list or worrying about something. So just give yourself permission to do that, and it can deepen your relationship so dramatically.
I love what you just talked about so much. This is, I think, my favorite part of today's conversation because I can really
It's the most fun.
I love it. I can really see how I actually was doing these things sometimes during my day. And I have some rituals that I do with my cats all the time, depending on what cat it is and what time. But I make sure that I get these rituals in the day and the day-to-day routine because it's very important for my cats and it's important for me as well. And I didn't know what this was, but actually this is exactly what I do. And like,
how beautiful. I love that.
I love learning, and I also work long hours. So sometimes I need to focus on working, and then I go off and do dinner and do other things that like life demands other things from us, obviously. And then at some point yes. I need to do certain routine tasks, and I put learning in my ear. So I put my earphones on, and I have my courses or my things going on, and I'm very happy to listen and do at the same time. And then there comes the time when I have to say, for example, medicate one of my cats. And at that point, intuitively and instinctively, I stop whatever I'm doing. I leave my headphones off. I put my phone on the table and I go to them and I perform our little ritual. And I make sure that I introduce in that care the praise and the attention. But this is yes. very much giving them the full attention and the full presence and really observe what they're doing and really be with them during that time, because I don't want to be distracted and listening to something else and receiving information while I do something that for my cat could be not necessarily traumatizing, but could be a moment when they need the support of me being present. And I have never
Exactly.
thought this was it, but I do it because I know it's
Mhm.
important. And another thing I do every day, the boys have their room upstairs and full of cat things and cat trees and uh, cat highways and all the things and the
It sounds
wheel.
wonderful.
So they run on the wheel, etc. So the girls live downstairs, the boys live upstairs, and they're all together during the day, but at night they go upstairs to sleep. And when I go in there and I first sort out my girls in the morning, and then I go up and see the boys and open the door for the boys to come out and sort them out and do the things that we do every day. The first thing I do with one of my boys who really needs the connection and really basks in that connection is so I can feel it. It's so important to
Yeah.
him. I pick him up
Yeah.
in a certain way, like I used to do when he was a kitten, and it's a way to pick him up that is basically hanging on my leg in a certain way. Like, it's difficult to explain, but basically it's the same way every single day. I pick him up in a
Hmm.
certain way where he rests his head on my knee, and I actually I I am all around him, and I am not, again, if I'm listening to something while I go around the house doing things, I stop it, because at that time I really need to be with him, and I sniff his fur and I talk to him, and that is our
Yes.
moment of connection, and he is so happy for it.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that this had a name, but actually this is exactly what we do every day. So every one of my cats has these rituals in their day with
Mhm.
me at some point or another. And yeah, it is important, and it is so
Mhm.
much fun. I loved
It is
hearing
so
you
much
talk
fun.
about these things. And this has
Yeah.
been, Shannon, this has been like such an enlightening conversation. And thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. And before we wrap up, I'd like to give you the opportunity to share where people can find you if they want to learn more about your work.
Oh, absolutely. So I'm always hanging out at animallovelanguages.com. That's the website. If you're on Instagram, head over to Love and Feathers and Shells or Animal Love Languages. I have two accounts over there. And of course, I've got my Facebook and TikTok and all that good stuff. But if you really want to find me, head over to either the website or Instagram. That's kind of where our flock lives online, right? And I offer one-to-one sessions. There's all kinds of different options. Like I said, I work with clients mostly on Zoom and the phone, and also I offer remote sessions for difficult time zones all over the world. I also offer pet Reiki and energy balancing and energy and wellness care for pets that are going through stuff, right? Life hands out stuff, and we need to find creative ways to support the whole animal through that process. And I teach, and I run a practice circle, a small group practice circle for dedicated students. And we have a lot of fun every month. We meet 3 times. We do an in-house workshop style practice. We have a special pet guest who comes in from my community with their animal, and we practice with that animal. And we also do a monthly Q&A. And I want to encourage anyone who's listening or watching today who is animal communication curious to go ahead and sign up for my weekly love letter. That is where you'll get the $25 discount code for your first session with me. The reason that I emphasize this is because for years and years, and I've shared that I'm in my 5th decade, right? I'm 54 to be exact. For many years, I didn't think I could do this. I had no clue, but I hired animal communicators routinely. And that is what gave me the building blocks when I finally realized, when I woke up one morning in meditation and the animal said, "You are an animal sensitive and intuitive." And I said, "That's great. I don't know what that means." And we went on that whole other journey. And I talk about that over on Let's Talk to Animals, which is my podcast. And of course, Paola, your episode will be up over there as well. So if you're listening to this and you want to hear more from Paola, you can also find her at Let's Talk to Animals. But when I first went on that journey, having the experience of being the pet parent or the animal guardian, the animal owner, or the pet foster mom or foster dad, and being on the receiving side for so many years and seeing all the different applications and seeing the transformations in my own animal family helped me realize there is no substitute for the experience. So if you want to have the experience, it's another great tip for how to deepen your bond with your animals. It's a wonderful experience watching them react when they are having those intuitive and sensory communications. And it can be so enlightening because your animals know. They know, just like you know, why you are the way that you are, why you do what you do. They know, and they have their reasons. And animal communication is a way to explore what their reasons are and why it makes sense to them. So you can have those negotiations and those conversations and develop, really grow into the interspecies family that you dream of being. So
yes,
be sure to check that out and let me know that you came through this chat today so that we can meet, because I love to meet friends of friends.
Yes,
so
we
please
should
let me know
all
where
connect
you
with
found me
Shannon.
from.
She is wonderful. So, and to everyone watching, if this conversation resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below sharing what team you are on and what term you feel best describes your relationship with your cats. And again, if you have enjoyed this conversation and want to dive deeper into Shannon's work, you can connect with her, just reminding you here at animallovelanguages.com, or you can listen to her on the Let's Talk to Animals podcast. And for those of you who love free resources, Shannon has two beautiful gifts for you: a pet love languages guide to help you better understand how your animal expresses connection, and a pet anxiety guide for guardians looking into bringing more calm into their pets' lives. And obviously, Shannon has mentioned that when you join the Love Letters community, you'll receive $25 off any session with her. So you'll find all the links that you need about these special offers right below in the description. And thank you again, Shannon, for the work that you do. And thank you all for being here and staying with us until now. See you next time. And until then, love your cats as much as you can. Bye for now.